welcome to another episode of the Pinnacle Mindset Show. I am your host tonight, or today, or whatever time you are watching this. And my name is Sophie Dodge. You all heard my voice on the podcast before. And so today on the show, we've got Luke Howard. Welcome, Luke.
Hello, thank you very much for having me.
No, that's all right. Thank you for coming on the show. So, first of all, introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, okay. Well, I'm Luke. I'm a triathlete, and I study at the University of Stirling. I'm now 23 years old, going strong. Originally from Eastbourne. Before I came up here, I didn't go to uni straight away. I went about a bit. Lived in Spain for a couple of years, I've ended up here, and it's all going well.
Amazing. So, obviously, you're involved in triathlon. How did you get into that?
So I'm from a swimming background, actually. I started doing that very young. And that's kind of what I did for quite a number of years, right through till probably about 13, 14. And I was, I was swimming pretty well, actually. You're kind of that underdeveloped age, and it was all going well. And then all of a sudden I got to kind of 13, 14, 15, and everyone else started growing, and I was pretty late in development, I think, and started losing quite a bit, actually. You see these big gaps at that age, I think, actually. So then my dad just saw the sport of triathlon. He wasn't involved in it in any way. We just found out through a friend. And then, it was quite a good friend of mine. And then I got joined up with a club called Team Bodyworks down in Eastbourne. And it went from there. I borrowed a bike on my first triathlon, which was such an old bike. The gears were on the actual tube instead of on the handlebars. It was that long ago, actually, now. It all went from there, really.
Wow, that's amazing. So it's interesting you say that you come from a swimming background. Obviously, swimming as a sport, I think, is probably quite hard to pick up later on. Do you think that's helped you in your transition to triathlon?
100%, it's definitely helped. I see a lot of people coming in late to the sport, and swimming by far is the hardest one to kind of pick up. It's all about technique, and it's just something that you've got to drill into yourself, I think, at a young age. So I feel pretty lucky, actually, that I started off in swimming, because I know it's so hard as it is. So yeah, definitely, it's definitely a good thing that I started in swimming.
Yeah. So what would you say has been your biggest achievement?
In terms of triathlon?
Yeah, or in anything. Yeah.
I think in terms of triathlon, I just like the fact that I've been able to do fairly well in the sport, and I reached a kind of quite a good level as a junior. That was kind of my proudest moment in triathlon. I took quite a drop, actually, when I was trying to make that transition from junior to senior. And I actually really struggled going from, it's kind of a 18, 19 kind of year old period where you have to make that move up. And there's quite a significant gap, actually, at that point in the triathlon world, when you're making that switch. So I actually went through quite a bad patch there, and I really didn't enjoy the sport, actually, at one point. And actually, I took a little break, actually, for about 4 or 5 months from it completely, just to kind of reevaluate what I wanted to do. And I wasn't really enjoying the sport for what it was at that time. So I took that little break. And then I came back when I came up to Stirling Uni, and I got straight back into it, actually. I was like, well, I need to find something to do. And I did kind of miss it. I do like my competitive races and stuff like that. So it took quite a while to kind of get back into it. It took a long period of time, especially like at the very start of my first year back in my first race back in a senior race. I finished dead last. And through the year, I progressed a lot fairly quickly. And I think at the end of that year, I finished 9th, I think, at the British Championships, which from where I was such a massive change. And I was on quite a good trajectory going into second year and hopefully into racing. But obviously with everything that happened, that's really not happened. So I've just been training since then. And I'm going well, and I'm because most importantly, I'm enjoying it at the moment now. Again, like, I enjoyed it a lot as a junior, and when I made that senior switch, I stopped enjoying it. So I was like, eventually, I just came to the conclusion I'm not doing this at the moment. And because of that little break, it definitely helped me going forward to, enjoy it. And I found my kind of passion for it again. And because I found that passion, it seems to be going well again. So yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. And it's almost, I don't want to say it's nice to hear that you have had like ups and downs, but like it's interesting. What do you think was the biggest challenge with that battle between going from junior to senior?
I think a bit of patience you expect going from a junior age. I mean, don't get me wrong. There's some juniors out there which can just do it. They're top of their game as juniors, and they just go to being top of the game as seniors. But that's not necessarily the case, especially now in it's such a hard sport. For me, I think it's just because I was doing so well as a junior. I was on quite a high, and all of a sudden I was coming I was finishing in my last year as a junior. Definitely top 10 in British races, and I was going from there into senior races, finishing 40 odd. Just because of the development, it's a switch, and I did not cope with it very well. And there's quite a big jump in training when you go from school age into university age. I obviously didn't go straight to university. Maybe if I had, it would have been a bit better because I would have surrounded myself with other people which were kind of making that jump. At school I was doing so much at school in sports wise. Actual training for triathlon was maybe, 13, 14 hours. But I was also doing sports around that. But then if you really want to make it in triathlon, obviously you have to put in dedicated, at least 22 hours, I'd say. So eventually I came up to Stirling, like I said, and because I was surrounded by people that were putting in up to 25, even beyond that hours, it gives you that mindset that you want to do the same. So that's definitely how I progressed. But yeah, as I was saying, sorry, the hard part was just making that jump. It's the same for everyone at that age, I think.
Yeah, no, I definitely understand that. So what drew you to Stirling?
To Stirling, it was definitely the setup, the triathlon setup. I'll be honest, I didn't really come here for the course. I did for the course. I definitely enjoy what I'm doing, like on the course, but quite a big goal of it was the triathlon because I knew at that point I wanted to get back into it. I didn't really like being unfit, and I'm pretty sure I wasn't chubby, but I felt chubby, if you know what I mean. So I just saw the setup here. There was a lot of good guys up here. Mark Austin, I think he just won bronze actually at the Commonwealth Games, and I was like, well, there's lots of people up there. And I also didn't want to go to one of the general kind of ones. Stirling's definitely grown actually since I've got here, but before it was Loughborough, Leeds, maybe Bath, and that was it. It was those ones you go there, or it's not really known centre. So I'm actually quite glad that I joined this centre, and I've kind of, since Andrew Woodruff, my coach, kind of took over, it was kind of a reset of the whole thing, I think. The guys like Mark Austin, Ferg Roberts, and etc. had kind of moved on at that point, and it was just kind of the big reset for everyone. And I was there from the start, which I'm quite glad.
Yeah,
and the facilities as well. I should mention the facilities as well. Like they are actually top class, and I still think they're incredibly underrated. Actually, people just think Scotland in their mind sometimes. If you're coming from England, especially, and they go, "Well, I'm not going all the way up there," but I don't really know why because. One, you've got the facilities just as good as Loughborough and Leeds, probably better, I'd say. I'm going to have to say that, aren't I? And also it's not overcrowded like Leeds, Loughborough. There's so many people in those places. Up in here in Stirling, you feel like you're actually noticed. Whereas I'm not sure. I've heard things from people you don't feel noticed in those bigger setups.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. And without turning this into a Stirling Uni prospectus, I do genuinely think that like Stirling is one of the most beautiful places in the UK. So we talked a little bit about your biggest achievement. What would you say has been your biggest challenge?
Biggest challenge? Just kind of in my life, just finding out exactly what I wanted to do going from school onwards, what I actually wanted to do in my life. I think, it's when you're at school, it's so easy, you've got everything around you, and then all of a sudden you're kind of plonked in the world. As I said, I didn't even go straight to university, so I just went and worked in a hotel in Spain, and over that year, I did enjoy it. I was in Spain, you know, I was getting a great tan and it was good. But at the same time, I was thinking like, I was seeing everyone on university degree courses from my school and I was like, oh, they will know exactly what they want right now. And I didn't have a clue, like triathlon wasn't going very well. And I was like, what am I going to do here? Like, I don't really know where I am. Like, so, I mean, it was over that kind of 2-year period I was there actually that it took a year to really sort of work it out. I'm quite glad actually I went there in the end because I was away from everything and I was able to work it out for myself what I wanted to do going forward. And it seems to now, at least it's turning out pretty well.
Yeah, no, I think that's amazing. But so you said that you went away to Spain for a year. Why? What drew you to Spain? Why did you go to Spain?
It was a bit of both. A bit of I didn't want education. I was kind of a bit sick of it. I was a bit like, oh, I've done my A-levels and I want a break. So I went to play Banyoles, which is near Girona, which is a really nice place for triathlon. The place I went to was a hotel specifically for cycling and triathlon. I was like, all right, that sounds pretty cool. It was almost like my little gap year actually, and I was kind of using it as a way of trying to change up my whole training as well. I left the club I was at, Bodyworks, to, you know, because as I was saying, it wasn't going very well. I was like, well, maybe I'll try something new. So I did try that. And yeah, I mean, that was, there wasn't really any reason for it. I just wanted something different and I didn't want to go straight to university because, as I said earlier, I didn't quite know what I wanted to do, you know, for the future, really.
So what would you say is your biggest goal at the moment in terms of triathlon and maybe in terms of life in general? It's a very big question.
It's a very, very big question. Obviously, at the moment, quite a lot of my focus is just surrounded with triathlon. I don't want to keep going on about triathlon all the time, but it kind of is like, I don't want to look too far into the future because that's such a long time away. Like my short-term goal is, I keep it a little secret. I don't like shouting out about it because that's like the way I am, but I want to try and qualify for the Commonwealth Games. So I kind of keep that under myself and I just use that as my short-term goal. Like, I don't really like setting too long-term goals because, yeah, as I was saying, it's too far in the future. So that's my short-term goal. And also getting the degree at the same time, which will hopefully be beyond triathlon, because triathlon isn't going to last forever, at least from a performing side. You know, getting the degree to
do you see yourself as one of these granddads who's like proper still doing triathlon?
Me? No, not at all. I don't actually. I know when I'm finished with this sport that I'll be done competing. I'll definitely want to go. I'm sure I'll maintain I'll definitely maintain fitness, but like I want to put it into something else. I think tie effort, because you spend so many hours doing it.
Yeah,
I've definitely used up all my hours in triathlon by the time I finish. I know that for sure.
Yeah, definitely. So moving forward into the here and the now, how would you say the pandemic has affected training towards that goal?
Yeah, so right at the start, I didn't really expect it to get as big as it did. So it kind of just happened. I didn't really ever, like, it was kind of February and I was like, oh, something's happening, obviously. And I was like, we were just carrying on as normal. And then it got to March and then it was all of a sudden really real that we were actually literally not going to be able to swim. And I still didn't really believe it. And so, yeah, we went off and did our own thing. And I just kind of carried on. We all went straight into like the next 3 months with such a positive mindset that this wasn't going to last. I mean, maybe we would get back towards the end of summer. So we just went on and on and on. And that eventually got really long. I think it was around June time. I think, yeah, it was June. And I started to get really tired. And I was like, oh, this isn't actually going to happen. And I think a lot of people in the squad we were having all these Zoom calls and meetings at the beginning, really trying to keep it upbeat. And it did get tiring. It fizzled out for sure, because everyone knew that nothing was really going to happen anytime soon. So I then actually made a goal of trying to break 15 minutes in the 5K. That was the first one. because I had to make something a goal, because I was just like, I felt like I was just training for no reason. So I made that a goal, spent 6 weeks going towards that. And I did it. I went under 15. So I was pretty happy. And then at the end of that, I was like, well, that's it. And then I actually had this quite a big drop. I was like, right, I really am kind of getting sick of this. Like, I don't know what I'm doing. I was on furlough from my part-time job. The weeks were just going by, and I really wasn't doing much. And I actually kind of had a 2-week break at that point from triathlon. Well, cycling and running at least. I think I did a little bit here and there, but I was just doing other things. Not that you could do much, but I was going for walks here and there. And then I started to try and kind of pick it up a little bit slowly. And again, I was getting a bit like, oh, what am I doing? And then I decided to make up this challenge to cycle the North Coast 500 for Cameron Main, who's kind of chairman of his sister's charity, the Abbey Sparkle Foundation. Because I'd started watching loads of YouTube, obviously, during lockdown, because, there wasn't much else to do. And I saw this kind of cycle around the North Coast 500 on GCN. And I was like, I'm going to do that. And I just said it, and I didn't really actually expect to do it. And then all of a sudden it became a bit more real. I was like, because it was at the point where the lockdown had kind of started easing and people could do a bit of traveling. And so I was like to my parents, oh, do you want to come around the North Coast 500 with me? I'm going to cycle it over 3 days. And we literally just went for it within a week. We just planned it. We just camped along the way. We didn't need to book hotels or anything like that. So just hired a car up here. They came up from Eastbourne, and we went around and documented it a little bit on film and via social media. And it got quite a big traction, and then managed to raise some money for the charity, which was making something out of nothing, really. So that was good. And then, it came around to winter again, and that was the point where it was a bit hard again. You're like, oh, a whole nother winter of training before we can race again, which we still don't even know if we're actually going to get to race at this point. So at that point again, it was a bit like, and I hadn't swum for months either. So I think I didn't get back into the pool straight away. With the other guys, I had to wait for another exemption, because I've eventually got an exemption actually to swim. So it was November, I think I got in. And I was swimming then. That went on. It took me a long time to find any sort of stroke again in the pool. It just felt a bit weird. And then come January, fitness started to build. And I'm now in an okay place. I feel very fortunate and extremely lucky that I've been able to swim, because I can't quite fathom that other people have had to go through another 6-7 months of literally not swimming or gymming and stuff like that. Actually, at one point, I felt quite sorry for people that they've had to go through that, because it was obviously quite hard for that first 9 months that I wasn't able to have a normal routine. So I've tried to make it as normal as possible as it is at the moment. Obviously, university is still online. But admittedly, I've been able to get some sort of routine, which has definitely made it a lot easier for myself over the past 6 months.
So you said that you were obviously working towards this goal of 15 minutes. And do you think, obviously it's very common that people have, I don't know, the Olympic blues, or after they've been going for a goal, they're like, well, what am I going to do next, kind of thing. Do you think that played a big part in your mood drop?
Oh yeah, it did. As I was saying as well before, I was like, I need short-term goals. I need something to aim for, because I just feel like there's no purpose then. Something like triathlon is such a big purpose in my life and in other people's lives. Everyone has their own little, whatever it is that they do, they have their own little purposes and goals. Otherwise, you just feel a little bit lost. You don't feel like you're going anywhere. So for me, that's a really important thing. To have a short-term and long-term goal, really, just because then you have a sort of something to aim for and to work towards. And I just think that keeps you in a good state of mind. Otherwise, you can just you can get quite down, I think, if you've not got anything. And I think I probably did. I felt a bit like that actually at points. I was a bit like, oh, what am I doing with my life? But because everything's always been there to work towards. So finally, yeah, I worked it out in the end by making these short-term goals.
Yeah, that's amazing. So how you said that, obviously I know that you're a uni student, and obviously triathlon's a big part of your life. How do you go about balancing the two?
Very erratically. I also have a part-time job as well, because I'm pretty fully self-funded pretty much, apart from a small scholarship that I get through Santander. But yeah, I'm doing 20 to 25 hours of training a week. I've got university and I've got my job. So literally it all comes down to organisation. If I'm not organised, and don't get me wrong, it goes wrong sometimes. I don't always get it right. I've put myself, in December, just gone, coming towards the end of the kind of modules for that semester, I was really all over the place. Like training was not going well for a couple of weeks. Not that it wasn't, obviously I had a couple of like literal sleepless nights trying to get the work done. Like sometimes it's not very enjoyable. And that's probably because a couple of weeks earlier I decided not to do something. And so I got this backlog. So yeah, for me combining it all, it's literally, I have to stay on top of it and keep myself motivated at all times. It can get really hard sometimes, but then at the end of the day, I know if I can just get to the end of that kind of segment, I call it, once I'm over that other side, like it's almost like a rock's lifted off your shoulder. So I just plow through it and try and get to the end of it. And then it always works out in the end. Like everyone always panicking. You always seem to panic about things, but it always goes right in the end, I kind of realized. So that's just how I balance it. Keep organized as best as I possibly can.
Amazing. So my last question for you, anybody listening who has listened to other episodes with me, is the same question I ask at the end of every single episode. If you could invite 3 people for a dinner party in an alternate universe where COVID doesn't apply and they can be coming back from the dead, what 3 people would you invite?
So I'll start off with a sporting one. I'll obviously go to triathlon because I seem to be in golf with, but it's called Javier Gomez. He's a Spanish athlete, actually. I should probably be saying a UK athlete, but Javier Gomez, just because of his kind of graciousness across the line, and he's been there since the very start of the sport, and he's now kind of 35, and people have always, like, I think at this point have put him aside, saying you're too old for like this kind of short course distance, and he's still going strong. And I'd honestly just love to sit down with someone like that and just hear his whole experience. He's been Olympic silver medalist, multiple world champion. Just someone like, I'd just love to know how that he has maintained this consistent top level, like year in, year out, injury free. Just kind of get an insight into probably one of the greatest triathletes in the world. My second one, my next 2 are actually musicians. My first one's Chris Martin, the lead singer of Coldplay. Because Coldplay are probably my favorite band, and I just like their music. It's kind of really uplifting music, I think, and it's what gets me through a lot of sessions. So just sit down with him, and because they're always quite a happy band as well. Like I kind of like that positive band, and it's good to just get the positive kind of things out of people. And so that's why I'd want to sit with him. And then Elton John is my other musician. I also like older music quite a bit, 80s and 90s. So I'd also like to sit down with him because he's been through quite a lot throughout his whole career as well. I think, he's had like ups and downs throughout his whole time there. And yeah, I just love him to be pretty cool if I could. I play the piano a bit as well, so I'd be cool to play to him one day.
Yeah, that'd be epic. Cool. So thank you so much for coming on the show. If people wanted to get in touch, ask you some questions about maybe triathlon, about how you balance uni life, where would they find you?
Well, my social media is on Instagram. I'm Luke Howard 97. That's probably the best way to find me on social media wise. I'll shout out my own little podcast. So I'm on the other side for once, which is a little bit different. But I do a podcast called the Tri Nation podcast. I do that with my coach Andrew Woodruff here at Stirling Uni, and that's kind of an insight into top pro level athletes in the triathlon world and other sports. We've had Duncan Scott on, the swimmer. So if you want to kind of listen to them or check out the website's trination.com. And as I said, the podcast is the Tri Nation podcast, and the social media for that is Tri Nation Tri. So yeah.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. It has been amazing to pick your brains. And to anybody listening, please be sure to like, share, comment, do all the usual stuff, subscribe if you're on YouTube, and have an amazing day.